If you're anything like me, AP Calculus along with senioritis just didn't seem to mix because senioritis on one hand completely deprived you of doing absolutely anything besides sitting alone, texting friends, and pretending you had a life, and AP Calculus demanded a ton of work along with a very developed work habits, along with a good just brain for math. Basically, my calculus nights would be involving one calculus problem to about 30 minutes of YouTube. Ooh, Jenna Marbles just uploaded a video. And basically looking at random things. Like, I would end up on Wikipedia looking at Swedish pop bands. Don't really know how. Anyway, I decided to research the two people that came up with this. I thought it would just be one, but it turns out there's two. Gottfried Wilhelm von Leibniz out of Deutschland, and Sir Isaac Newton out of England. Sir Isaac Newton, of course, is famous for his discovery of gravity by the apple falling on his head, even though that never really happens because Newton took very good notes and didn't ever mention an apple actually hitting his head. But whatever, that's just how the story goes and how people remember it. And Leibniz, a relatively unknown in terms of famous historical figures, philosophist and mathematician. Leibniz, we'll start out with him. He's credited with finding the derivative as the instantaneous rate of change and can be used to find tangents, minimums, and maximums. That pretty much sounds familiar because it really should. He came up with the typical dy over dx. The d, of course, stands for derivative, and it actually stood for the Latin word differentia. So differentia, derivation, who really knows? I'm not that much of an LA guy. He also found how to take the area under a curve with the integration sign. He elongated the Latin s, which stood for summa, or summation, and as you saw there. And this, of course, are the two most pretty much core calculus ideas that you can come up with. The derivative and the integration of a certain thing. He used exact notations in his notes, and he published his works on November 11th, 1675. And now Sir Isaac Newton, who we'll get to the debate later, but Sir Isaac Newton is known for gravity, of course, and just being an all-around physicist as well as being asexual. Don't really know how a human can do that, but he's asexual. Newton called derivative fluxions. The reason we don't call them fluxions is because Leibniz used distinct notes while Newton used dots, literally dots. So you can't really tell what is different from what. So these fluxions, which he came up with the idea before Leibniz, but he didn't publish it. In 1666 he came up with the idea, but he did not publish it, fearing controversy and criticism. Yeah. His book titled the Principia, is not written with the dots that Newton used in calculus, but does use the calculus-based geometrical system, geometrical form. But basically, it's not using the exact dots that Newton used, so it doesn't really get credit. The actual debate is between Leibniz and Newton. It wasn't really a debate until a Swiss mathematician named, let me get this, Delisle, there we go, that's the name I couldn't think of. Delisle accused Leibniz of plagiarizing Newton's work. Leibniz eventually, well, before Newton published his works, and it wasn't fully published until after his death in 1704, some 20 years after Leibniz had published his work, he had sent his idea to another mathematician that Leibniz was currently working with, and Leibniz had seen this, but he said he never used it, which is probably the case because Leibniz himself got calculus by first using integration On the other hand, Newton first came to calculus by using derivation. I'm not really sure on the past tense. Just don't quote me on it. Harry, you are shedding like crazy right now. God. And basically, these two had a debate where Newton was like, yeah, I came up with it first, except it was in really flowery words and was really educated, and it was like, basically, he was dissing him, but in a nice way. And Leibniz responded much in the same way, like a gentleman, like a sir, just dissing him, but basically in nice words. And this went on until Leibniz's death, and still, funny enough, Leibniz died and only his secretary attended his funeral. Sort of sad, lonely old man. Even the asexual guy got like 100,000 people to attend his funeral, but Leibniz got one. And the only evidence or investigation that happened at the time happened by the Royal Society of London, which was pretty much partners with Sir Isaac Newton, and Sir Isaac Newton actually authored the last little bit. Of course, they found Sir Isaac Newton to be the original idea maker and should get all the credit because, of course, they were best friends and Newton authored the report, which doesn't make any sense at all. So, basically, we don't know who had the idea first. It probably that they both co-invented it, as I said before. Newton came up with the derivatives, and Leibniz came up with the integration as well as product rule, and basically those two together, separately but equal, created their own thing called calculus, which you just had to take a terrific class for. Now you know the history of calculus in probably the most boring way you could find out about it. Have a nice day. Soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur that's shedding everywhere. I hate calculus, you hate calculus. Grr, grr, grr.